Hi everyone. I think every teenager has faced some problems with their parents or at school with their peers. And I can vouch for the fact that this has a huge impact on their life. But the impact is not necessarily a negative thing, like you might think. Just listen to my story about my discouraging childhood, which still couldn't break me down despite some pretty bad circumstances. I was born in a small town near London, into quite a regular English family. We were not poor, but sometimes had troubles with money. My parents have always been quite supportive of me, especially my mum. She used to say that she always knew how special I was. She'd noticed that I'd had some troubles with the coordination of my movements and eyesight when I was a kid. When I'd grown up a little bit, it had become evident that numbers and letters didn't make sense to me. Hence, doctors at some point diagnosed me with dyslexia. So now you can probably imagine how challenging my life at school was. Mum did her best to get me adapted to normal life, so that I didn't feel uncomfortable with my peers. However, her parenting methods might not seem very normal at first sight. For example, there was a moment when we were going to Granny's house in Devon. I think I must have been misbehaving, or something like that, in the back seat, because Mum pushed me out the car and said that I should find my own way there. There were about 3 miles left to go, and I was 4 years old. Even though many years have passed since then, I still feel the fear that I felt back then, standing there alone, surrounded by an endless field. I had nothing left to do but go. I didn't make it there until it had gotten dark. I was tired and starving, and maybe even angry. I don't exactly remember. But when Mum opened the door, she behaved as though nothing actually happened. And I also remember, one winter morning, it was snowy and cold outside, when my mum woke me up, handed me my bike, and sent me to our relatives like 50 miles away from home. She said it was really important to reach them. She gave me some food, like an apple and a sandwich, and said that I had to get water somewhere on my own. It was hard and chilly to ride a bike in snowy weather. The whole way I kept wondering why fate had given me such a harsh mum. I almost got lost twice, since I could barely read the road signs. I probably never felt more exhausted than when I finally reached my destination that day. Tough approach, you might say. Yeah. What mother could ever do that to her beloved son, right? But all this stuff definitely built my character. Despite some natural disabilities, I rarely got ill and formed a strong habit of never giving up. My years at school were full of tribulations from my everyday life. According to some sort of family tradition, my parents sent me to an all-boys school, and teachers there were never forbidden to beat us for any shortcoming. I had plenty of them, as you might already have guessed. Teachers literally considered me the dumbest person they'd ever met. Well, I guess they were right, since I couldn't answer any of their questions. Nobody realized that I was nearsighted. It took them a couple of semesters to find me the perfect glasses, but I still couldn't study well, being dyslexic. I tried my skills on the playing field, but, I just couldn't make myself become an athlete. I nearly failed school, constantly being punished for not reading well, for not knowing the diameter of a circle, for having dirty shoes, or for poorly making my bed. Of course, at first, things like these were scary, painful, and humiliating. But at some point I got used to them, to a certain extent, so that when any of my teachers would beat me, I'd say how grateful I was for their efforts. Thank goodness my classmates never bullied me, since virtually all of them were in the same position as me, in terms of severe punishments. I hated the very situation that I had to be at that school. Having realized that I needed something more than just studying, back then, I had tried to set up a business venture a couple of times. I'm extremely fortunate that my parents nurtured my entrepreneurial spark and supported my dreams, whatever they were. At first, I tried my luck at growing and selling Christmas trees, but I wasn't successful in it because of rabbits. Those intrusive chiselers had eaten all the first springs. I got so angry that I decided to get revenge. I started hunting them, but unfortunately, I was only able to sell a few carcasses for a song. It was much less than I initially invested in the fir trees, but it had turned out to be enough for another business. I decided to breed budgerigars and sell them. My dad had even constructed a huge cage for them, But one day when I was back to school, after another holiday, Mum called me and said that rats ate all of the birds. What was wrong with the animals around me, I thought. Only, a few years later, Mum confessed that she was to blame because she had let the birds fly away since they were too loud and too expensive to look after. It was sort of a devastating period in my life. However, I never doubted I could make things happen. When I was 13, I transferred to a new boarding school where a new level of struggle began. I still had bad grades, but my low academic performance, as professors have called it, prompted me towards kind of a revolutionary road. I had some serious thoughts on my new school's reformation, which I shared with the headmaster. For example, I thought that it had been really stupid and meaningless to make all students attend soccer games. Why would you make the weaker ones watch how the stronger ones are playing if they didn't want to? There had to be some justice in terms of how students spend their free time. Also, I suggested that the school cafeteria could have been transformed into some sort of food bar instead, so that it not only makes students feel more comfortable, but also saves money on extra staff. I felt how a tiny sparkle of a bright future began building inside of me. Of course, the headmaster didn't take me seriously. I was probably so annoying. He actually even said that I'll either go to prison or become a millionaire. I'd prefer the second option. Eventually, I dropped out of school at 16 without even graduating, having realized it was not where I wanted to be. My revolutionary views were supported by my best friend. So, we decided to create a magazine with a focus on students, since they had begun taking an active interest in maintaining a social life. Unfortunately, neither I nor my business partner had any money to invest in it. As fate would have it, my mum, my eternal supporter, found a necklace on the street and gave it to the police. After months without anyone stepping forward to claim the jewelry, she got it back, sold it, and gave the money to me. In today's money, its purchasing power was somewhere around $2,000. We used it to pay off the magazine's electricity and postage bills. I was so grateful to her for that. Sometime later, we managed to find some powerful advertisers to help us publish the magazine, and had a couple of interviews with some really popular musicians. This was actually how my first step towards a grown-up life brought me success and made me kickstart my whole business empire. A few years later, after the magazine launch, I would found a mail-order record business, which would later become Virgin Records. I eventually managed to expand the Virgin brand to an umbrella of more than 100 companies and 60,000 employees worldwide, encompassing airlines, a music label, and even space travel. My general attitude towards life is to enjoy every minute of every day. I never do anything with the feeling of, oh God, I've got to do this today. My name is Richard Branson, and I really do hope that my story proves that there are no life circumstances that are able to prevent you from being who you are. Remember, your personality is the only matter that's able to determine your future.